Live on WFLA Now. Feel good and live your best life with Bloom Health Club. Here's Gail Guayardo.
Today, we are going to help you age powerfully. And there are so many things that you can do to take your health into your own hands. Joining me now is triple board certified doctor in family medicine, integrative medicine, and functional medicine, Dr. Rajka Milanovic Galbraith. It is so great to have you on Bloom.
Thank you for having me, Gail. I'm super excited to be talking about aging well because November is Long-Term Care Awareness Month. And did you know that 2 out of 3 people over the age of 65 will require long-term care? And unfortunately, we as women live longer than men, and that equates to needing that care for twice as long, almost 4 years.
Wow, that is a staggering statistic. But the name of the game is to try to do as many things as you possibly can now, so that you don't have to spend your time in assisted living or, needing some long-term care support, because it's very expensive. And a lot of times we can avoid some of the problems and the roadblocks of our health and life. One of the main things that you like to do for people is to actually give them a stress test. You say, a lot of people are like, I don't feel stressed. I think we're so used to living in chronic stress that we don't realize that it is impacting our life in a big way.
Absolutely. I started testing when I had my high-performing executives and just professionals say, but doc, I don't feel stressed, over and over again. And they were one step away from complete and utter burnout. And stress ages us probably the quickest. And so when I run a stress test using saliva, it's astounding what I see in almost every single test that I run.
And when you run these tests, you say that curve, which should look one way, never does.
Correct. So typically our cortisol curve, we should start with a higher value in the evening, and then it should gradually lower so that we could fall asleep and stay asleep at night. And usually the cortisol levels are just through the roof at every point. So it makes them feel very wired during the day, and then at night, potentially wired but tired. And then it accounts for that 2 to 3 a.m. wakening. And if so that's happening to you, it might be a stress response.
Yeah, and so those cortisol levels are spiking in the middle of the night. I know that there are natural ways and natural supplements to help bring down those levels. One of them is a breathing exercise that you like to recommend. Tell me about that.
So I like to teach patients 4-7-8 breathing, and it's really simple. Can I tell you about it?
Yes, please do.
So it's inhaling for the count of 4 seconds, holding your breath for 7 seconds, and then exhaling for 8. And it's really the breath hold followed by that longer exhalation gets people out of fight or flight pretty quickly. But you have to be doing it daily, about 10 minutes a day, and it takes about 6 to 9 weeks to really kick in. So it's a great starting point.
So at what time of the day should I be doing these breathing exercises?
There's 2 times that are excellent. So if you do it first thing at the start of your workday, it's going to make you more focused for the job at hand.
Okay, I love it.
And the second time, for those of us who have trouble falling asleep at night, is right before bedtime.
Okay. All right. I want to bring in our Bloom Tampa Bay digital reporter and producer, Brody Waddell. Brody, do you do breathing exercises?
I do some breathing exercises. I do like a lot of martial arts and Brazilian jiu-jitsu. And so it's all about breath work on stuff like that. It's amazing how much of an advantage you have over the other guy if he's breathing heavy and tired and you're just, I force myself to breathe through my nose as much as possible.
Really?
That's where all the filters are, is through that system and not through your mouth.
Oh, that's very interesting. I'm going to have to monitor it because we went in production on a show today that will air Wednesday, and Dr. Rajka will be part of that for sure. And doing a whole nitric oxide workout, you had to do it with your mouth closed, which I found to be very difficult. You don't realize how much you breathe through your mouth until you try exercises of breathing differently and changing the patterns. Another lifesaver for me that I know that you also support, Dr. Rajka, is ashwagandha. Like do you wake up in the middle of the night, Brody?
I do sometimes.
Really?
Yeah, I'm a little bit of a light sleeper.
I do, and it must be cortisol related because I take an ashwagandha or a cortisol supplement, and man, it puts me right back to sleep. And then there's another one that you like.
Yeah, I like the ashwagandha as you do, and I like rhodiola for that resilience to stress. So it makes you more resilient, so that that you don't succumb to the effects of it, and you can make good decisions at all times, and you're just not so stressed out and don't know what to do or how to proceed.
Is rhodiola a supplement that you're taking at night or in the morning?
That one's typically in the morning and afternoon, and then save the ashwagandha for night. There's a third supplement that I also like if ashwagandha isn't enough, and that is phosphatidylserine. And you can take that for those people who have high cortisol all day long. You can take it 3 times a day, and it'll really bring you down. So kind of almost equal to ashwagandha in its effects. And so if one doesn't do it, you can add on the other, or just simply go to the other one. And always, of course, check with your doctor so it doesn't interact with anything else you might be taking, and so that it also doesn't have any side effects that someone who is just advising on a show like this wouldn't know about.
Talk to me a little bit about, you're triple board certified in family medicine, integrative medicine, and functional medicine. And by the way, I'm sorry, I botched your name earlier. It's Dr. Rajka Milanovic.
Correct.
Okay, I'm sorry, Galbraith. But we put all the information for our listeners and viewers online as well, so you can check it out and connect with Dr. Rajka. But I think that this whole movement towards integrative and functional medicine is a critical one, because I know we have one of the best healthcare systems, and the doctors and the nurses and the healthcare providers do so much for people, but it's so easy to get lost in that system and not get the care that you really need.
Absolutely. And that's what really motivated me to go into functional medicine when I came out. And I really felt I wasn't curing anyone, and I didn't have the answers. And I'll never forget, a woman came in and we did the workup for fatigue, and that's one of the most common presenting symptoms. And this is what that workup looks like. You take a history, do an exam, run their labs, and 99.9% of the time, the labs would be normal. And that woman walked out of the office, and her girlfriend eagerly went up to her and said, "Well, what's wrong with you?" And she goes, "That dumb doctor doesn't know what's wrong with me." At first I was like, oh, but then I'm like, she's right. I don't know how to help her. And that's what kind of always had me on the lookout for a better way to approach these symptoms that we just didn't have any insight into. And then it was really my own health journey that really was that catapult that got me to find an answer quickly.
So you had your own health struggles.
Absolutely. So I always joke and say in my 20s, 30s, and 40s, I was so fatigued that I would fall asleep, Gail, at rock concerts. And so you're probably slightly younger than I am, but I fell asleep at the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame concert in a stadium of 50,000 people, if you can imagine. It was Bruce Springsteen played, and then it was lights out for me. And it was just utter fatigue. And then I also fell asleep standing up on dates. And I always joke and say, could you imagine my love life falling asleep on date after date? And yeah, that was really, I wish I would have paid closer attention. But, I was like every other patient that came in. My labs were normal. And I did not see a doctor. I ran my own labs when I was a resident, because for fear of them telling me nothing was wrong, my labs were normal, or perhaps I was depressed, and I knew I wasn't depressed.
Right. And I went through a similar journey. It was at a time when, both my parents were in a race to the finish line of their life. I was waking up at 1:30 every morning to come into this building, and I did so for 26 years. And, when I walked away from my job as a morning news anchor here, I was broken on so many levels. I was broken emotionally. I was broken physically. I felt spiritually drained. I would literally, just to not fall asleep on the way home, open the window just to let, air hit my face so I wouldn't get in an automobile accident.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, and I was getting blood results that said I was okay. And then by the grace of God, during the pandemic, Channel 8 called me back, and they're like, "We know you had vocal cord issues and all of these problems. Do you think you could maybe try a less demanding schedule and shift?" Because I was doing 4.5 hours of live news, pushing and pushing and pushing vocally. And so I came to Bloom, and we launched, I helped kind of relaunch the show during the pandemic. And it was meeting doctors like you that I would say, was a game changer and a lifesaver because now, like, 25 pounds lighter, no brain fog, no depression. Not that it was depression, it was my hormones that were all off balance. My thyroid was a wreck. But you don't know the number of times that I would just get a clean bill of health and I felt terrible, absolutely terrible. So, what's wrong with the system that we are getting these blood results that are like, you're okay, Gail? But then I had to go to an integrative and functional medicine doctor for the real answers.
Yeah, it may help to explain the different approach. So allopathic medicine really means to diagnose and treat with the medicine. And let me give you an example. So if someone came to me and said, I have headache behind my right eye, and I'd ask questions and they'd say, oh, yes, the light bothers it. Yes, I vomit. It lasts 4 days. And I'd say, oh, that's a migraine. Here's your migraine med. And when you come in for us, we look at the root causes. And so that's what are the triggers for inflammation that lead to these symptoms, and we remove the triggers so we don't ever have to prescribe a pill. And I always joke and say, you can remember the 8 triggers by the word stains. The first S is sleep and stress. And for you were getting up at 1:30 in the morning. It was a demanding job. The T is for toxins. A is for adverse or inflammatory foods. So gluten, dairy, sugar, soy. If someone's struggling, I'm like, that's an easy, low-hanging fruit for them to get rid of. I is for infection or the microbiome. So it really governs our immune health, how often we get sick. And that's all the bacteria in our large intestine, not to get so technical. The N is for nutrient, so vitamin and mineral deficiencies. And I've been testing for over a decade. And do you want to know how many vitamins and minerals most adults are deficient in these days?
How many?
Lately, 10 to 12.
Wow.
Yeah. It used to be 3 to 5.
Is it because our food is not giving us the nutrients we need?
That's part of it. And the other part is that you don't know if you don't track and you're not hitting that 8 to 10 servings of vegetables. And most people do need to supplement. So even if you're eating all organic and you're eating protein, carbs, and fats and eating all those servings, most people will at least need a multivitamin and vitamin D at a minimum, possibly fish oil, and maybe even a good probiotic. But I always call those my core 4. But best is test. You could just get those labs done in any local lab. And I do about 10 to 12 different vitamin and minerals when I test. And I test everyone.
Do you work with people virtually and in person?
Yes. As a medical doctor, if someone wanted to partner with me as a patient, they'd have to fly into Chicago to see me once, and then the rest is all virtual. And ironically, even my patients in Chicago, 90% now, since the pandemic, don't come in for live office visits. They all are seen over Zoom. That's what they prefer in their busy lives, and I will accommodate whatever way.
Yeah, no waiting room. I do love it. That's the way I, get my medical care now. It is a game changer, and you stay more on top of things. I want to circle back to the toxins that we are exposed to, and this toxin overload is really keeping us from aging powerfully.
Absolutely. So on a day-to-day basis, as you know, we're exposed to toxins day in and day out, and so some are unavoidable. And I always say you want to implement things to make sure you detox, and then you want to eliminate what you can. Super important. And so as a woman, Gail, we put on 126 different chemicals on our bodies by the end of a morning. And I always say the simplest thing to do is to do an inventory of those products using one of the popular apps out there, like the Think Dirty app we had both mentioned, and choosing ones that are non-toxic. And that was part of my whole issues in my 20s and 30s. I was using like shampoo and conditioner and shower soap. And so even for men, those are 3 things that most people use. It's the day in and day out that led to hormone imbalances and a lot of the symptoms and diseases that I was diagnosed with.
Yeah, that is one of the main things that when I went to a thyroid specialist, again, who works more in the functional integrative medicine side of it, it was the products I use, the foods I eat, like the low-hanging fruit that you mentioned. Like now I just buy gluten-free toast, or, he doesn't even like it to put the nail, how we do the gel or the dip.
Yeah.
Not a fan. Anything that's going to interfere with your hormones, is just get rid of it. And it's amazing how that alone will help you feel so much better.
Absolutely. So can I share a case study of a woman who came in?
Sure.
So a woman came in and it's pretty typical between 40 and 50. Symptoms will crop up: insomnia, hot flashes, maybe some PMS, some bloating. And those are common in general, but they don't need to be present at all. And for her, it just seemed to really be affecting her life. And I took her through what I call my 3D protocol that I wrote about in my book. And the last D is detox. And when we tested her environmental toxins, she was high in the ones that acted like estrogen in the body. And that's like BPA in plastics, parabens and phthalates that are in our cosmetics. And we restored health to the point of where she said, I no longer have hot flashes. I'm sleeping through the night. My endocrinologist accused me of going on hormones.
Really?
Yeah. And she switched her products, and she was working with her doctor to wean her off of her antidepressant because she was no longer depressed either. So that's the power of just eliminating those inflammatory triggers or even just toxins alone.
Are you a believer in hormone replacement therapy?
100%.
Yeah.
100%. And I would say that is a conversation every woman should have with their doctor by the time they hit 40. And I think some of the earlier studies scared a lot of people off hormones, much to the detriment of seeing, despite taking women off hormones, the breast cancer rates have gone up. And so it's definitely not the hormones. And it really, you have to talk and say, where are my benefits? And the benefits really are to your brain health. So that brain fog you were talking about, to your bone health, to reducing your chances of having cardiovascular disease. And again, it's a very personalized, individualized conversation, but we should take off the plate that hormones cause cancer, because there's many studies that have been released. In fact, in April, there was a very interesting one that refuted that women who hadn't been on hormones for 10 years, it's too risky to start. And they found benefit in women even over 65 who were never, ever on hormones. So again, have that individual conversation, know your risks, and then make the decision together with your integrative doctor.
Do you see a future where every man and woman basically over 35 is taking hormones then, or on HRT? Like just everyone needs to, that's just something like, because I hear everyone talking about this now. So everyone just has to do it, like everyone who could afford it?
That's an excellent question. So let's preface with, before it used to be 45 plus, 50 plus, that should be a consideration. But now, unfortunately, even in men, we've seen a reduction in testosterone, even by 30% over the last decade. And I'm seeing my 20-year-olds coming in with testosterone levels of 300. Nutrient deficiencies like zinc is crucial to make testosterone. That stress level will drain your testosterone. The toxic exposures, they found that atrazine, which is a pesticide, can feminize male frogs. So these are really serious consequences. So I have a theory I'd love to share, if that's okay.
Absolutely.
Is that our world is growing more and more toxic, and if we don't take a stance, that we may need to be reaching for hormones earlier. But I would like to be optimistic and hope that now with the awareness around toxic products that it won't have to be the case.
That's good to hear. Going back to the Women's Health Initiative, which is the study that you were talking about, Dr. Rajka, that scared women from taking hormone replacement. So a lot of us, I was one of them. My mom was a breast cancer survivor, my late mom, and she's like, whatever you do not do hormone replacement therapy. And then that stuck with me. And then again, it was through Bloom that I found out and learned that, no, we need this. Man, what a game changer it is. I was definitely late to the party. I was already past menopause. And I started it only maybe a year ago when I was 56, 57. And it's like everything's different. Like I feel different. I feel energized. I sleep better. And all of the doctors, I never did take any, anti depression or anxiety medications, but it's crazy to me how many women are being prescribed medications that they don't need when really all they need is their hormones to be balanced.
100%. And I'm glad that you found someone that you could talk to and you could decide what was the best course and that you had benefit. Hormones give us our chi and our vitality for life. And, you're not alone, Gail. So many women, and, I've partnered with women for, I've been a doctor for 30 years. And even some of my earlier patients have found their way back to me despite being 5 or 6 states over. And they're so fearful, even though they trust me, I can't break through. I'm like, well, look, your mom died of Alzheimer's. Like, this is really going to be beneficial to you, especially if you carry the gene, and they're just so afraid of it. And that breaks my heart.
Yeah, it's sad. What are your thoughts on the GLP-1 drugs?
I love that question. Okay, I'm going to give you the answer for weight loss. I'm going to give you the answer for longevity, because there's really two roles, right? I think done in conjunction with proper diet, and I would say optimize those 3Ds, and you're going to have the lowest side effects. So if you're eating a healthy diet, they're going to work better, and you're going to need a lower dose. If your microbiome or gut and digestion are in alignment, then you're not going to get the nausea that some people complain of for days after they take it. Same with the detox. So some people, when they lose weight, you do is we store our toxins in our fat as a protective mechanism. You won't dump the toxins because you can be prone. And, I've had patients that don't follow a good diet despite that we've counseled them, and then they don't lose that much weight. So from a weight loss perspective, I'd say learn a solid diet and lifestyle routine, because oftentimes that's going to take 10 to 15 pounds off people. So I always say in that first month, patients partner with me and work with me, they'll drop 10 pounds just by reducing inflammation. And then if you need more, look at what are supplemental things you can do, and then use it as an adjunct. I have, 3 veins of patients. And then for the ones that it's been a lifelong struggle, it's a game changer. So don't deny that patient those medication in conjunction with that. And I'd love to speak to the longevity piece if you want to hear about that.
Please. That's an exciting part of it.
Yeah. So I've been using GLP-1s or peptides, which are naturally occurring. They are so great for healing and anti-aging. And they even found there's benefits for GLP-1s for anti-aging, but at much smaller doses. So think if a starting dose is 2.5 milligrams, 1 to 2 milligrams, or no more than that 2.5. And maybe you do it weekly for a while and then drop it off to every other week or once a month. And it's protective for the brain. It's cardioprotective. So, there's lots of good benefits. Now, I'm not telling everyone to run out and do that, because there's other strategies and other peptides I'll use first after a sound diet and lifestyle. But it's a consideration. So I have a lot of people that fly in because they want the longevity protocols, and it's something we have that discussion, and we counsel them on risks versus benefits.
Yeah, I want to talk more about the longevity, because it's fascinating to me, because we have had doctors come on the Bloom Health Club and Bloom and talk about doing a maintenance dose for the long term, especially for women when it comes to dementia and heart disease and keeping that inflammation down. These drugs were originally meant for diabetic patients to stay on for life. Mm-hmm. So we already know that, you can stay on these drugs long term, but you just want to make sure you're titrating them correctly and you're taking the right amount for anti-aging. So is that what you're saying?
Yeah, that's absolutely what I'm saying, is that you can use it. It's a nice little, like a bonus piece to the anti-aging protocol that really packs a punch, and just one of several that I use.
And how many milligrams? Because most doctors start like 25, to 50 to 75, 100.
Yeah, so, and that's 25 units typically, and so it's 2.5 milligrams. So you could start with 1 to 2.5 milligrams. So you could do 1 and 1.25 or 2.5. So keep it at 2.5 or less. So
per weekly.
And then once someone has, the other benefit is osteoarthritis. So it's great for inflammation. So they'll find their joint pain goes down. And then when they're feeling pretty good, then you can do a trial every other week. So that's another way to dose it, or once a month.
So are a lot of those benefits from the drug itself, or just the byproduct of getting better shape, losing adipose tissue?
And what's probably a little bit of both. And then at that lower dose, you won't see that muscle loss. Mm-hmm. And so I've had patients that I put on it for 6 months. We took them through our typical protocol. I have a Whole Foods weight loss program, and they're still suboptimal with the body fat. And I've seen them drop body fat and gain muscle mass. So you don't have to do that. And I'll use other peptides that will help boost muscle formation, of course, couple it with weight or strength training.
Right.
Interesting. Yeah. Tell me about your book.
So my book actually takes everything that I've learned over the last 30 years, particularly over the last 12 in functional and integrative medicine. And I said, why are people flying to see me in a pandemic? There's certainly doctors all over the United States. And I'm like, it's taking people through the right steps in the right order, and when they partner with us, so with the right amount of support. And I call it the 3D high energy protocol. And it's how to reclaim the energy of your youth, and it's foundational for anti-aging. And so it's the diet, digestion, and detox are core. And I focus on that. There's actually 9 steps, but if I told people it's 9 steps, who's going to adhere to 9 steps, right?
Right. But there's 9 steps. I mean, are you doing this all at once? Or are you starting one at a time?
One at a time, and then we couple it in. So it's diet, digestion, detox. We always start with diet and nutrients as the top one. And then we look and see if sleep's an issue. We're going to jump in and add either a supplement or a modality that will fix, maybe it's hormones right from the get-go, because if they're not sleeping, they'll be inflamed, and then they're not going to lose weight, or they may not have a bump in energy. So
how long does the average person stay on hormone replacement therapies?
In my mind, once you start postmenopausal, that's really meant for life. Now, could you do it just to get through the hump of symptoms? You could, but
why?
Why? Yeah, absolutely. Why would you do that? Why would you deny yourself the benefits that we're seeing? So,
and there are a number of different ways. My healthcare provider she really was hoping that I would do the pellet. I don't know why anything that's, inserted like that, and then if it doesn't go right, I just started freaking out. But I use a patch, an estrogen, bioidentical patch. Mm-hmm. I inject myself with just a little bit of testosterone, and then I dissolve the estrogen. And yes, it might be more work than the pellet, but I feel great, and it works.
Yeah. And the same thing that you identified, like, why would you put in a pellet that you don't know its outcome? And when it comes to hormone replacement, I love looking at the genetics of hormone breakdown. And you don't even have to know the genetics, but you need to know the biochemistry. So testosterone breaks down to DHT or estrogen. And so you could get an adverse effect. You can have a woman go and lose hair in the front part of her head. So we call that male pattern balding. That's not a desirable effect.
No.
And I'm not going to get that back for you until that's out of your system. There's no way to remove that pellet. Now, some people swear by it and love it, but I'm with you. Cream, or you can do a little sub-Q. So it's under the skin injected. And I'm going to be working with another company that's looking at putting it in an oil and topically.
That would be nice.
Yeah.
I mean, I don't mind the little shot. It doesn't hurt at all. But yeah, if you could do it in an oil or different forms. All good stuff. Is there anything I haven't touched on that you feel that our listeners and viewers today need to know about? I mean, I know that when you go to an expert like yourself, you're going to be sometimes paying out of pocket for that care, and you're going to be paying a little bit of extra out of pocket for your blood results that you need, that deeper dive into your blood. But if I told you how much money I wasted on diet, this and this shake and that supplement, and just basically shooting in the dark, not knowing what I was doing, just grasping for some kind of relief and some kind of help, it was worth the investment in myself just to feel better.
Yeah, everyone that works with us, we track this. They say that was the best investment I ever made. And to answer your question, I would love to talk about the anti-aging test that everyone should know about.
Okay, yes, please do tell.
So there is an anti-aging test that measures your biologic age. And so what does that mean? That's how old you are by blood work versus your birth date. And the number to reach is 7 years younger than your birthday. And what they were rolling through some of the pictures was those were my results, and I was 10 years younger. And that's just with some simple strategies. And you also want to age less than 1 year per 1 year. And I don't think I showed that, but so I'm currently aging at 0.72 years for every 1 year of life. And I joke and I say, every 4 years, I'll gain a year.
I love that. I love that. It is really exciting, the forefront of, anti-aging medicine. It's an exciting time to be alive. And hey, I had 2 of my children very late in life. I was, I think 41 with my daughter that's now 17. So you do the math. And I want to be around. I want to be around to be a grandmother and to be a mother. And I think it's an exciting time to live your life and embrace your health.
It is an exciting time because I think we're on the precipice of some really great gains and ensuring that last day on this earth, we're enjoying it to the fullest without pain.
I love it. Well, Dr. Rajka, I cannot thank you enough for joining us on Bloom Health Club today. It's been a great conversation, and anytime you are back in the Tampa Bay area, I hope you will let the Bloom team know, because we'd love to have you back on.
Oh, what a compliment, Gail. Thanks. It was a pleasure to be here today.
Thank you so much.